Yet again, this game stinks.
Tron is what I would talk about if there wasn't a solid chance to be talking about another Tron game at some point, so instead, Tron Legacy. The sequel to Tron that has Sam Flynn find his father Kevin Flynn stuck in the virtual city The Grid by Clue, who essentially committed a genocide against other virtual beings due to him seeing them as a blight. Yeah, Clue is intense. I enjoyed the movie for what it was, and it definitely is a main display of the use of CGI as technology has advanced when compared to the first movie. And that's not a knock at the original Tron movie, because I've done some physical animation work before, and the work that went into making that movie happen makes me feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack because of how stressful it must have been. Seriously, look into it when you have the time. It is insane how much effort had to be put into that movie. But anyways, for this review I had to watch both Tron movies because I hadn't seen them yet, and the timing is very convenient since another Tron movie is in the works for 2025. Even with that new movie in mind, I probably still wouldn't have even thought about watching Tron outside of doing this video. In fact, the main reason I'm doing this video is because it is a request from my Patreon associate, Epic Otter. So today I'm going to be looking at Tron Evolution, and thank you very much Epic Otter for the support. So, there's a lot of things to this game's story that you might not realize at first. For one, do you remember that thing I said earlier about Clue committing genocide? Well, this game is when that event takes place, making this game a prequel to Tron Legacy. And that I imagine is the most known part about this game's story. But apparently, this game is also a sequel to the graphic novel Tron Betrayal and the Wii/DS versions of this game, Tron Evolution Battle Grids. Look, I'm willing to watch 2 whole movies, but playing another game and reading a graphic novel is a bit much for me to make these videos. So for any of you Omega fans of Tron who have seen everything, I hope you excuse that I won't be talking about those much more than this. Now, as far as Tron Evolution story goes, it's about Kevin Flynn discovering the ISOs, or isomorphic algorithms. The ISOs and the Basics don't really like each other that much, by the way. Kevin thinks that Jalen, one of the leaders of the ISOs, was killed, so he made a system monitor program to try and keep the peace. And that program is you, going by the name Anon, short for Anonymous. Clue is holding an installation ceremony where Radia, another ISO leader, will become a co-administrator of the system in order to bring unity between the ISOs and the Basics. Cora is also supposed to be here with Radia, but because of the whole Jalen incident, security has been increased and Cora is unable to get in without authorization, so she sneaks in instead. Suddenly, Abraxas appears and starts converting programs before being stopped by Anon. Clue says that the Abraxas virus was once an ISO, and everyone tries to deal with the situation in various ways. Everyone aside from Clue. Some time passes and, oh, look at that, Clue is wearing orange. I wonder if that's a problem or not. Anon and Cora witness Clue killing Flynn and Tron, but for those of you who have seen the movie, you know that that's not true. And their next course of action is to warn everyone, so they head to the end of the Line Club to meet with Zeus to get the word out about Clue. Now, I'm actually going to be skimming through the rest of the story from here on out because there's a lot to talk about. The main reason is because this game is a largely integral part for Tron Legacy to even happen. For starters, it gives a better picture as to why Kevin wasn't able to leave the grid, and Anon does a lot that would have been a very big problem later on. They get rid of Clue's warship, which was used to declare war on the ISOs by bombing the end of the Line Club, a known ISO safe haven. They stop Clue's man-made, quote-unquote, Abraxas virus, which infected and killed almost every ISO including Radia, and that virus turned out to be Jalen, who Clue had corrupted to give Basics reasoning for hating and wanting to get rid of the ISOs. He even gives a whole speech about it during the games happening at the game grid. They worked alongside Kevin after a bit of time passes to rescue Cora after she gets kidnapped, and Anon even gives his life for Cora at the end of the game to stop her from being crushed by a recognizer during a crash landing. And these events are canon since Cora actually does mention Anon in Tron Legacy, albeit not specifically by name, which I guess corresponds with this game. Instead, she calls them a sympathetic program when recounting the story to Sam.
So I ran. A sympathetic program smuggled me out of the city, but soon they had me surrounded.
Which kinda irks me because of how much Anon did just to be called a sympathetic program, but whatever. I'm totally not taking offense to being reduced to a simple "there I am" moment. But anyways, a license-based game story being canon to the plot of a movie doesn't happen very often, and seeing it at all is super cool to see, because I imagine that the whole story overall had to be developed around being shown off as a movie, and also kinda not needing the game information to understand the movie fully, but still having that game story being built as such a crucial part to the movie does help make this plot very good. I must say, Tron Legacy's aesthetic is very well adapted into this game. Some of the scenery is actually quite nice to look at. The various aspects of the grid are captured in a way that doesn't make any two places seem the same, despite a lot of the same color scheme used in most places. Character faces are probably the weakest aspect visually though. It feels like there's a scale in the quality where the highest quality is Radia, and then the lowest quality is Gideon. I can't really explain it either. I guess it's just uncanny valley. I just hope you get what I'm trying to convey based on how they look. Moving on, we have the audio, and there are some memorable tracks in the game, and the composers are all very notable. I'm talking composers of Quake, Borderlands, God of War, Invader Zim, Ben 10, Generator Rex, Shaolin Showdown, and plenty more across the board. There are also 2 songs from the movie, Derezed and The Grid, that were made by Daft Punk. Meaning I probably can't put those songs in this video, but let that be a testament to how good this game's music can be. Unfortunately, there is a little bit of a downside, and this is a spoiler for later, but this game has multiplayer and no music plays during it, surprisingly, which makes the game very awkward if there's just 2 people playing in it. It's basically just sound effects. And I also want to talk about the voice acting credits, because while everyone does a good job, it gives a special solo showing for Olivia Wilde, but then just displays every other voice actor normally. And I believe is because most of the characters don't have their original actors for the roles, so they wanted to show off that they have one of the big names from the movie in the game. But to me, it kind of felt like, well, screw everyone else, huh? I mean, Tron's voice actor is the same person in the movie, and he didn't get a solo credit display. Granted, Tron's only in the game for about, like, an hour, but still, most other license-based games, even if they are able to get the original person for their role, it's not displayed like this. I know this is a bit of a nitpick, but felt like I should mention it. During the game, you'll be running through various parkouring elements to get from one area to the next. This includes leaping large distances, scaling along walls, and also using your discs to pull yourself to these red markers. You will at times throw your disc to hit switches which will either open up areas or reveal additional platforms. Whenever you're not parkouring for movement purposes, you instead are parkouring for combat purposes. So I suppose we should talk about combat before discussing how the parkour fits into that. When fighting enemies, you have a variety of combos available to you that involve swinging or throwing your disc. There are also powerful special moves that you can perform at the cost of this meter. When it comes to refilling that or your health, there are spots on the walls and objects on the ground that you can parkour on or off of. You will also obtain different discs throughout the game, which change attributes about your special moves. There are some times where you'll use the light cycle where you have to make it to the end of a segment, typically while everything around you explodes, or drive a tank and cause the explosions yourself. During all of this, whenever you derez an enemy, you can pick up the experience points in hopes of leveling yourself up, getting you memory points. These points are used at disc stations and can give you upgrades for both offline and online play, which I suppose I should also talk about. There are 4 online modes: Team Disintegration, basically Team Deathmatch; Disintegration, basically Free-for-all; Powermonger, basically Domination; and Bit Runner, where you take hold of a bit and hold on to it to earn points. However, the bit siphons your health and energy while holding it. This game's heavy focus on the mix of parkour and combat is really cool and surprisingly well implemented. Obviously, you have the segments that are exclusively parkour for getting around, which has its cool moments, especially when you can quickly go through these areas, but that's not really what I'm talking about. I mean when fighting enemies. Since always refilling any resource you have is exclusively tied to performing parkour actions, you are required to do so. And since you are able to act out of this parkour with unique attacks that are stronger than normal, you can get a larger benefit from it than you would expect. So much so that you could turn the tides very easily, even more so the case when you add the alternate disc types into the situation. The different discs add more variety to the combat, where the basic combo system kinda doesn't, since you don't get additional combos themselves. That's not even to say that the basic combos are bad, because you have combos that deal a lot of damage, combos that let you move in on enemies, along with the moves specifically designed for that, and plenty of ranged and even environmental stuff as well. Plus, some enemies have significant weaknesses to certain disc types and attacks, even so much to the point where using those special moves sometimes are the only way of effectively taking those enemies out. Although the bomb disc is ridiculously good because that damage is explosive, pun very much intended. On top of that, you can even use these discs on the vehicles, which gives an even larger sense of power to those machines. Also, the online is surprisingly good. It even has friend lobbies. Some fighting games struggle with having efficient friend lobbies today. Now, my experience with the online is a little bit skewed because from the very beginning, I could see an update for the new DLC, which definitely hurt to see that there was no form of farewell for the game, since I expect to find no one playing it. The game fills in empty spaces with computers, but some of the game modes only add one computer, and like I said earlier, with there being no music, it becomes boring fast, especially if you're just getting dominated by stabbing Robot 86. However, during my time of recording footage, I had one more game mode to do, and it overall just didn't seem like it would be fun, and I was gonna just leave it at that, but I pushed on and went into the last game mode. And somehow, in the middle of that game, I actually found someone. Another human being playing this game at the same time that I was. After that, I played a few more games with them, and they showed me some stupidly funny stuff. And I actually finished a full match in the online modes and got to experience a small portion of how the game could have been played so many years back. Looking more into the DLC, there were character skins of the Blackguard and Sam Flynn that you could buy, as well as 7 additional maps, one of which being a recreation of the light cycle grid from the first Tron movie. I can only imagine how much of a blast it was to be a Tron fan and playing this game's online back in its prime. So if you see this video, midnight 4200, however you pronounce that, and considering that you were playing the game at the same time I was, you very well might be watching this. Thank you very much for adding so much to an experience that otherwise would have been an absolute drag. Now, I didn't mention this in the gameplay segment, but you are able to block attacks, and in the middle of that, you can actually parry attacks. Parrying requires that you take some damage though. So at 1 HP, blocking could just cause you to die because you take that little bit of chip damage. And I wouldn't find this as much of an issue if it weren't for other problems alongside that. For one, you aren't invincible for the entire retaliation animation. So it's better to wait until the final incoming attack to counter, which again only adds for more health getting knocked away from you. However, in some fights, enemies have unblockable attacks, which makes that a mute tactic sometimes, and some attacks are so large that dodging them isn't even efficient, causing you to still take damage. Because of both of these things, it is surprisingly easy to get juggled or rapidly hit by enemies and just possibly die. I played on normal difficulty, and some sequences on even that are a bit absurd, and there are harder difficulties than this as well. And as impactful as the abilities are, leveling up to get them for the story mode takes so long. I feel like it's mainly because this game is largely built for you to play it very often in the online modes. Character progression does carry over whenever you start a new story playthrough, but even after carrying over a little bit of experience I had because I had taken a bit of a break from the game, so I wanted to restart to get my footing back again, it still felt like leveling up to get new abilities took quite some time because you usually have to level up multiple times to get enough points to upgrade stuff for the story mode. Whenever you did get a ton of experience points, it was because you were blowing up stuff with the tank. Not to mention that the highest level you can get is 50, and I was at level 21 after beating the game, and that's with 7 additional levels from me restarting. Most of the abilities you can get are used for the online modes, and you are able to get experience from online matches, but what if I don't want to do that, or what if the online mode is just kind of boring? Sure, I can still do matches against computers, but I definitely can't say that it's super enjoyable, and now a majority of the ability list that feels like it's meant to help in rewarding additional playtime means almost nothing. And I might be a bit harsher on this than it deserves, specifically because of time passing. It's basically kind of the same deal with the online that I brought up in the good section, but still, that single player experience is hindered a lot because of this. And I feel like that game mode shouldn't be negatively affected because of the other game mode. The vehicle controls are okay. The light cycle is mostly fine, but I do think some level design pieces are kind of weird, especially since I've taken some damage in places I feel like I should not have, and it is very easy to take a ton of damage out of nowhere. Also, at no point in the story does the game have you utilize the right angle turns at all. I only found that out in the online mode because I just randomly did it. And considering that the whole right angle turn thing is such a big thing for the light cycles, it's a little weird that that's not used more. As far as the tank, it is pretty slow. Nope, duh, is a tank. I shouldn't be surprised by that. It is satisfying to destroy stuff, and like I said earlier, you usually get a ton of experience points when using it, so it's not all that bad. Also, this game is a rather inconsistent and sometimes buggy game. I've seen a recognizer jet visual effect that was flying around without the recognizer that it was supposed to be attached to. I had a time where the camera just didn't change when I fell out of a parkouring segment, resulting in me just dying immediately afterwards. There's the light cycle segment stuff with damage that I brought up. They're all really small things, some of which others might not have even noticed without me pointing them out or having footage of, and for other people, some of this probably didn't even happen to them. So I'm not going to make a big deal out of it, just wanted to bring those up. This game's flow is very much like a Sonic game. What I mean is when you're on a roll jumping from object to wall, killing enemies along the way, it is very satisfying to complete those strings. But the moment you get interrupted, you feel like you're constantly tripping over everything and you'll probably end up dying. However, to say that this game doesn't appeal heavily to Tron fans would be a lie. Overall, the gameplay is really cool. There are flaws, but there's a ton of high octane action with good music to come with it. And the online must have been fantastic with a ton of people playing it at the time. In terms of that, I feel like the game has unfortunately aged poorly, but overall the game is still fun. And at the end of the day, that is what matters most. What's going on, my fellow residents? It's me, TheFrozenCavern, and thank you guys for making it to the end of this video. I want to give another shout out to Epic Otter for becoming an associate on Patreon, because I'm gonna be honest, a Tron video most likely would not have happened otherwise. Maybe the upcoming Tron movie would convince me, but I doubt it. And also that would have been 2 years down the line. But in any case, I am now prepared to watch the new Tron movie once that releases, so there's that. But in case any of you want to become a patron or a YouTube member, both of the links to those are in the description below, as well as all of my other social medias. And with those you get additional benefits, such as being able to watch these videos earlier than everyone on YouTube. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more, as well as share this video out with your friends and family. But until the next video, take care.